Hey everybody, my name is Rydo, and we can now see the new cards coming out from the expansion One Night in Karazhan. So I'm going to go through all of them and tell you what I think. Now, the latest patch that just came out doesn't actually let you pre-order the expansion or anything, which is kind of strange. It seems like they're not even really trying that hard to get your money, which is an interesting twist. There's nothing new here in One Night in Karazhan. In fact, even if you go to my collection and click here, you won't see the expansion of Karazhan. The only way to see the cards, and it's a little bit tricky, is you have to go into crafting mode. Then you can click Karazhan, but then you don't see any cards because since it's a solo adventure, none of the cards will be craftable. They will all be handed to you. So then you have to click here, include uncraftable cards. And that's the only way to see it. And it's a little tricky there. So I'm just going to go through all of this. This isn't going to be a rant. I've heard a lot of people are upset with some of the additions in this expansion. I personally probably don't even understand Hearthstone to that level to even be that upset. So let's just go through the cards. We'll probably run into the classic bug in this game because very often when you start right clicking and looking at cards, they will stop rendering correctly, the text will be messed up, and all of that. So I'm just going to quickly move through everything here and tell you what I think. So for the Druid deck, the first card that you will get is a 1 mana, 2 attack, 2 health, Enchanted Raven Beast. Sounds like a good card. For 1 mana to get a 2/2, that's a little bit above the curve in my understanding of the game. And next card you get is a 6 mana, 5 attack, 5 health, Menagerie Warden. Has a battle cry to choose a friendly beast, summon a copy of it. Now that card is even better. Really, you probably would get a 6/6 without the battle cry, but then choosing a beast and making a friendly copy of it, you could do quite a lot of damage there. So good card there. And then the final third card you get for Druid that's unique to Druid is a 6 mana spell called the Moonglade Portal. Restore 6 health, summon a random 6 cost minion. Wow, that's really nice. That seems really powerful too. So maybe it was the thought that at the very least, and I guess everything needs to be framed this way, at the very least it feels like Blizzard, the creators of Hearthstone, felt like the Druid needed some help, because you've got 3 good cards here and no real problem with those at all. They seem above the curve, each one. Moving on to the Hunter. Your first card is a 2 mana spell called Cat Trick. It's a secret spell. After your opponent casts a spell, summon a 4/2 Panther with stealth. Now, the Hunter already has a lot of secret spells. In fact, too many secret spells, and a 2 mana like Explosive Trap or Freezing Trap or Snipe compared to this seems a lot better. So I don't imagine this card is going to get played very often. That being said, a 4/2 Panther with stealth is a pretty good card. It would get another beast on the field, assuming a Panther is a beast, which it probably is. And with several other beast cards, you can have cards that give beast charge, you can have cards that give beast increased attack. So there would be some good synergy there. But I don't feel like this card's going to convince people to stop playing Explosive Trap, which I see personally all the time with the Hunter. So a good card, just a card I don't think that would get played. So I'd say almost an average card at this point. The next one is also a 2 mana, which is a little interesting because the jump for the Druid was a 2 mana to like a 5 mana, wasn't it? No, it went from a 1 mana to a 6 mana, That's quite a jump. Here it's a 2 manas. A 2 mana 1/1 beast. Kindly grandmother. Death rattle summon a 3/2 big bad wolf. I almost feel like I would want it to be a 1 mana to summon a like 2/1 big bad wolf or something like that, but it wouldn't be surprised if there's a card that's already something like that. But it's also a beast. It seems like this is a little bit powerful here, even with the 1/1 attack. So, but overpowered cards are fine, I guess. Now the thing to remember about solo adventures is that they're eventually going to get banned from standard after a couple of years or a year. I forget, is it a year or 2 years that things get banned from standard? So they can throw out some pretty overpowered cards in these solo adventures as long as they continue releasing as solo adventures, which is another rant I'll get to in a second. But they could throw these things out and then wait a while and ban them. Or if it got really bad, they could change the cards immediately. Or ban the cards immediately. They can do anything basically they want to do in their game at all. So it's certainly a smarter move to put all of your overpowered cards in a smaller collection than it would be an easier press release to say, we've decided to ban all the Karazhan cards. But this might also be an indication that they're trying to go crazy with it, and I would be a fan if Hearthstone went a little crazier and had overpowered cards where you would win a little bit faster. The amount of time it takes to play a game can be agonizingly slow sometimes. Anywho, next card is 3 mana, 3 attack, 4 health, Cloaked Huntress. Your secrets cost 0. On the Hunter. See, that card in particular is crazy. Really, really crazy. You play this, you could potentially play on a Hunter 5 secrets in one turn. Like, I could see that getting played a lot. And I'm not going to mention common, rarity, legendary, stuff like that. To me, the rarity doesn't mean anything to me. It's something I think they just kind of make up. All it really affects is if a card is a legendary, you can only have 1 in your deck. Otherwise, everything else you can have 2 in your deck. And that's all that means to me. Maybe it affects how often the cards show up in Arena, but if it does do that, I don't understand that. That's never been explained to me. Moving on to the Mage, we have a 1 mana, 1 attack, 1 health creature that has a battle cry of add a random mage spell to your hand. The Babbling Book. Now, Mage to me always feels like the first character you should play as when you first start Hearthstone, and then you never really get back to it. So it almost feels like this card and any new mage cards are just gifts to new players. Adding a mage spell to a mage is probably fine. Almost every single mage spell is good, and if you're doing a spell plus damage, plus 1 spell damage characters in your deck, this would give you a spell to do some damage that way. If you're doing a freeze deck, this will might give you a spell to freeze characters, and those are pretty much the only 2 types of decks I can imagine you could even make with the mages. Either you're doing a lot of damage with spells, or you're freezing characters with spells. So, pretty good card. Again, with the mage, I just don't think more advanced players should ever play with the mage. You don't see a lot of people playing with the mage. Next card we have is a 2 mana, 2 attack, 3 health. That is Midva's Valet. It has a battle cry. If you control a secret, deal 3 damage. You still have a decent chance of having a secret under the mage. Mage does have a couple of secrets that you could play. They're not very good in comparison to like what the hunter secrets do. You wouldn't play too much. You have mirror image, which will summon a copy of whatever your opponent summons, which gets played really early in the game a lot of times for and probably underused. And then you have like counter spell, and so there's one secret that will protect you from dying one turn. There's one secret that will give you armor. They're a very mixed bag, but you can deal 3 damage for having that secret. It's a little too early in the game though, because you're not likely to have a secret on the second turn where you would most likely play this card. So I don't think this card's going to particularly get a lot of play, but there's probably nothing wrong with it. I feel like as they continue adding expansions, what they're going to end up doing is giving us the opportunity to have multiple cards that are 2 manas, 2 attacks, 3 health, and we don't really care what they do as far as their battle cry or ability or death rattle or whatever. It's just that we want more opportunities early in the game to have cards that we can play. That's what I'm feeling like the expansion is trying to do slowly. And then the final card for Mage is the 7 mana spell Firelands Portal. Deal 5 damage, summon a random 5 cost minion. Again, another card that feels super powerful. But if Hearthstone's gonna go crazy, I personally don't have a problem with it. So, like, you would feel like this should be a 10 mana card. It feels like for doing 5 damage and summoning a 5 cost minion, it needs to be a 10 mana card. Maybe you'd give them a little bit of a discount and do a 9 mana card, so it costs 1 less than these 2 5s added together, even though these 2 5s are different things, 5 damage versus 5 cost minion. But it seems like it is very, very cheap. Really, really powerful. Maybe that will push the Mage to come back into play. Maybe more characters will play it some more. This is just a common card. You could have 2 of these in your deck and play some more spells. The Mage obviously is a character that you would want to play a lot of spells on, so having a deck with more spells makes sense. Now for the Paladin, just making sure there. The first card is a 3 mana, 2 attack, 3 health creature called the Nightbane Templar. It has a battle cry if you're holding a dragon. Summon 2 1/1 whelps. And I'm not sure whelps are actually dragons. I'm not sure. A lot of these cards that get summoned through card effects, you don't have any way to really look at them in the collection because you don't have a card actually for them. Dragon decks still at this point to me don't feel like a viable set. So any card that has anything to do with a dragon, pretty much in my mind I throw out. So I think this is probably a pretty useless card. It's average, but I just haven't seen enough dragons in the game yet where you could make a deck of 30 cards and have a significant number of dragons. I wish they would come out with a dragon expansion, and then that would make more sense. Next card we have is the 4 mana Silver Moon Portal. Give a +2/+2, give a minion +2/+2, summon a random 2 cost minion. That seems right on the curve. That seems fine. That seems not overpowered at all. But Silver Moon Portal, didn't we have a card that was Mountain Glade Portal? Interesting. So there's 2 different portal things, and Firelands Portal. Interesting. So there's several portal cards coming out here. Yeah, average card. It's kind of strange. Everything else is either been really overpowered or just slightly overpowered. I haven't seen anything that seems like it's awful or strangely messed up. Next thing we have is the 6 mana, 4 attack, 4 health creature, the Ivory Knight. Battlecry, discover a spell Restore health to your hero equal to its cost. Now, this card particularly has some weirdness to it, because discover a spell would be from every single spell in the entire collection of the game. And if you're playing standard, I would assume that's every single standard spell card, and if you're playing wild, that's every single card that has ever existed. So as the game changes, how effective this is going to slightly change. You could get a 10 mana spell and restore 10 health for effectively 2 mana, because otherwise this would just be a 4 mana, 4 attack, 4 health. Or you could get a 1 mana spell and heal yourself for 1 health. Or you could get a 0 mana spell, which there's a significant number of those. Now it also, discover, I assume, means you get to keep that spell. So it's, you get a card that you can play later and you heal for that cost. I would assume that's what it means. Otherwise they need to rephrase it and they say pick a random spell. But no, you get to keep the card, because that's what this is. It's, do you want to pick maybe a lesser mana card and play that spell to help improve your chances of winning, or do you just want to pick the most expensive card that you're less likely to be able to play and get more health? So it gives you a lot of options here, and it's an interesting little gamble of a card. It's a new concept for sure. It kind of cries out for a new term, where they need to call it like heal discover a spell, or something like that. And then they could have like damage discover a spell, where you would do the opposite. Instead of restoring health to your hero, you would do damage to your opponent. It's a little overpowered. It's in the Paladin deck though, so that should be fine. Paladins are a little weak, so it doesn't seem super overpowered. Let's move on to the Priest now. Now here's the card on the Priest. A lot of people have been ranting about this. It's a 2 mana spell called Purify. Silence a friendly minion, draw a card. Now, people have been saying this is like the worst card ever in Hearthstone. And it does kind of seem a little expensive to have to draw a card and silence a friendly minion in a priest deck, because you're never going to really have that many characters, particularly on the second turn, that are going to have something bad on them that you would want to silence. And so you kind of have to penalize yourself and pay 2 mana to draw a card. And so yeah, it is a pretty bad card, but I don't understand the full amount of the rage here. People are saying it shouldn't be a common card. They've already responded and said they won't let this card show up in Arena because people who play Arena a lot are afraid if this shows up, it will just be another bad card. It seems not that bad, really. Just don't play it and you should be fine. So I kind of just have to move forward with that. I wouldn't play this. It is a bad card in my opinion. The worst we've seen so far, but it's not something to cry about or anything. Next card we have is the 4 mana, 3 attack, 6 health beast, the Priest of the Feast. Whenever you cast a spell, restore 3 health to your hero. I could see playing this card. It's probably not as good as some other of the Priest's 4 mana cards. I heavily played a priest deck for a couple months and did pretty well with it, but it's not terrible. What you could certainly combo several cards here because there are cards that gain attack every time somebody's healed. So you could play a spell card, heal somebody, then those cards would gain attack. And then this card's action would trigger and heal your hero, and then that might trigger those cards' attack again, so you could double up their power increase. So, maybe it has one too many extra health, but not really. It's maybe a little bit... See, if it was like a 4 or 5, it would feel a little bit better. Am I upset that it restores 3 health? No, that seems like that's a fine amount. You could have gone 2 here. I don't think you would have wanted to go 4. 4 seems like too much for something you might be able to pull off a couple times in a turn. And the next card we have is the 5 mana, 3 attack, 4 health, Onyx Bishop. Battlecry, summon a friendly minion that died this game. So, not a super powerful card as far as its attack and health, but actually a pretty good card. Priest does typically lose a decent amount of minions, so bringing one back from the grave is helpful. It's probably going to be a random pick, though. They've never really gotten into the realm of you can look through a list of all the characters that have died and picked, and that's one of the expansions that they could certainly embrace in some future time, where you could actually have a graveyard and look through that graveyard, which this game doesn't do. Cards just disappear when they're dead. Moving on to the rogue, we have a 1 mana, 1 attack, 1 health swashbuckler instead of a swashbuckler. Battlecry, add a random class card to your hand from your opponent's class. Now, for a pirate deck, I think this is good. A 1 mana, 1 attack, 1 health is right along the curve to my mind, and it does give you this extra battle cry that steals a random class card from your opponent's class. But this battle cry in particular is never really that useful because you never know what class you're playing against unless you're in some kind of tournament and you know your opponents very well, or the tournament has rules about what classes you're actually going to play as. So it's kind of just almost like you're going to get a random spell card, or a random class card in this case, not even a spell card. So it may be a character from a different class. You may get a mage character, you may get a mage spell if you're fighting a mage. So I wouldn't put too much faith in the Battlecry, but if you're running pirates, a 1 mana pirate works really well with the ship's cannon, which does 2 damage every time a pirate is summoned. Ship's cannon does 2 random damage, I believe. Next card we have is a 3 mana, 3 attack, 2 health creature called the Deadly Fork. It has a death rattle to add a 3/2 weapon to your hand. And this is the rogue. Now, the rogue hasn't been the greatest character class to use weapons in. In fact, none of them really have been. Weapons are still in development in my mind, but I could certainly see playing this card. It's pretty close to the curve, maybe a little bit below because it only has 2 health. But then it gives you a 3/2 weapon, and you have deadly poison in the rogue deck you could play that would then turn it up to a 5/2. If you played the second deadly poison, it would be then a 7/2. You could do potentially 14 damage right there to the face after playing this. So I could see a combination working with that really well. Or just play the card without even the deadly poison and get a 3/2, which is... It's always nice to get a weapon and not have to have a weapon card in your deck of 30 cards, because usually you can find something better than that to have in your deck. The next card we have for the rogue is the 5 mana, 5 attack, 6 health creature, Ethereal Peddler. It has a battle cry to reduce the cost of cards in your hand from other classes by 2. Now there are a couple of cards like this one that will give you a card from your opponent's class, but there's not really enough of them that this makes any sense at all. This is actually a pretty bad card in my opinion. It's about with the curb. It even has a little bit of health, but that battle cry doesn't really do anything for you. So if I was going to play this, it would simply be because I couldn't find a better 5 mana creature with 5 attack, 6 health. This is not going to work out very well, I don't think. Moving forward, the Shaman. First card we have is a weapons card, which again is weird. There aren't enough weapons cards in the game, and they don't do enough things for it to really make sense to play them usually. It's a 1 mana, 1 attack, 3 durability card, Spirit Claws. Has +2 attack when you have spell damage. So for a Shaman to have spell damage, you would almost have, on the 3rd turn you could play this and summon a totem that one of the 4 totems you have increases your spell damage, and then that would make it a 3/3, which is a pretty good combination. And you would actually have a 50% chance of doing that, because on your 2nd turn you could potentially summon a totem, and then on your 3rd turn you could summon a 2nd totem, so 2 out of the 4 potential totems may be on your field. So it's like a 3rd turn weapon that's a 3/3. It might be a good card to play, but only in, I would think, a situation where you don't have better cards. I think you could probably find better cards. It seems like a lot of work to get that one to even be somewhat useful. Next card we have is a 2 mana spell, the Maelstrom Portal. So almost every class gets a portal, or every other class. Deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. Summon a random 1 cost minion. I guess there's nothing wrong with that. It seems like that's fine for the Shaman. And then the next card is a 4 mana, 3 attack, 4 health, the Wicked Witch Doctor. Whenever you cast a spell, summon a random basic totem. Now, if you are playing the Shaman, there's a good chance you are playing a totem deck, so I could see this card getting a lot of use. To go back to this one, I guess it's kind of a dull card. I didn't have anything really to say about it. Deal 1 damage to all enemy minions, summon a 1 cost minion. It's a boring card. It's a good card, it's just boring. It's very simplistic, you know what you're gonna get. Moving on, the Warlock. There is no Witch Doctor class. Maybe they should be a Witch Doctor class at some point. The Warlock class, first one we have is a 1 mana, 1 attack, 3 health demon called, let's see, Malchazar's Imp, I think. Whenever you discard a card, draw a card. There's actually 2 combinations here that this is building towards, and so this is a very helpful card to add to Hearthstone. There are demon decks you can try and build where everybody you play is a demon, and then certain cards will only improve demons, give them health or more attack or something. And then there are discard cards, which there aren't a lot of them in the Warlock set, but there's a few, and getting 1 more helps. So you could potentially have a character that gets +1, +1 attack, +1 health every time you discard a card. And this that draws a card every time you draw a card. And then you could play a 3rd card that then causes you to discard a card, and then a lot of things would get triggered right there. And there are combinations now in Warlock decks that would pull that off. Next card we have is a 3 mana, 3 attack, 3 health Silverware Golem, not a demon. If you discard this minion, summon it. Another great card to work towards a discard deck. Because Warlock's ability is to draw another card for -2 health to yourself, the discard combination of cards makes some sense. Now, it has to be discarded, which is not, I don't believe, the same as if your hand was too full and you drew this card. I don't think this creature would get summoned. They get like burnt and destroyed then, but I don't think that falls under the vocabulary word of discarded. But there are other cards that would certainly discard cards, and so this is, if you're gonna play this in your deck, you might as well play this. In fact, this might actually help improve Warlock in the rankings of how often it gets played and how often it succeeds. Last card we have is a 5 mana spell, Karazhan. Summon a 1/1 candle, 2/2 broom, and 3/3 teapot. It seems a little overpowered because it's giving you effectively a 6/6 creature split into 3. And then the fact that you have 3 creatures on the field just added on the 5th turn is a little bit too much. I would say maybe make this a 6 or 7 mana card, but 5 seems fine. It's in line with a lot of the other overpowered cards. None of them have seemed too crazy yet. Move on to the warrior here. The first card is a 3 mana spell, Protect the King. For each enemy's minion, summon a 1/1 pawn with taunt. And this is the warrior, which the warrior isn't super good about summoning creatures, so I could see why you would want to do this. If you played it on the 3rd turn or for 3 mana, you probably would only get 3 1/1 cards. If you played it on the 7th turn, maybe then you would get 7 1/1 pawns with taunts, but that's the maximum you could have on your field. Your field would have to be completely empty. So it is a spell that you can only play between your 3rd and your 7th turn, maybe your 2nd turn if you are the 2nd to go and have a coin. But yeah, it's not a bad card, but I bet you could probably find better. So I'm iffy about that one. Next one we have is a 5 mana, 3 attack, 4 durability weapon, Fool's Banes. Unlimited attacks each turn. Can't attack heroes. See, if only there was some way you could strike out the 2nd sentence while keeping the 1st. But there's no way to do that. Even if you could silence a weapon, which I don't believe is actually an ability you can do yet. Maybe some point in the future. So as a warrior, your ability is to gain armor. So you could play this on the 5th turn and take out 4 of your enemy's minions in that one attack and clear the board in a very warrior style of doing it. And then if you had been building up your armor, you probably wouldn't even take that much damage or any damage for that. I think this is kind of a cool concept to add for a warrior. It's an interesting idea. I'd like to see some other variants on this, like a 1/2 or a 1/1 for 1 mana, maybe a 2/2 for 2 mana or a 4 mana. Get some different variants in here and have the warrior always able to do unlimited attacks, but it can't attack heroes. that is an interesting way to put a spin on it. It is kind of an expensive card, though, on the 5th turn for what it does. A little expensive, but I'd still bet some people are going to play it. Next card we have is a 5-mana spell, the Ironforge Portal. Gain 4 armor, summon a random 4-cost minion. Again, it feels like this should be like an 8-mana card. It's too cheap. It's really, really cheap. But it's in line with that other card that was too cheap, I guess. Well, no, it's not even in line with that one, because the other one was restore 5 health and summon a 5-cost mana. This is gain 4 armor and give a 4-cost minion. So they must have thought that the warrior was a better character than the other guy. Who was that? Let's see. Oh, this one cost 7, so they did adjust for that a little bit. Okay, so I think it's in line with the craziness that we're seeing elsewise. Some pretty crazy things there. 4 armor's good, 4-cost minions good. Could be any random 4-cost minion. So far so good. Now we look at the neutral cards that any of the classes can use. We have a 1-mana, 2-attack, 1-health creature, Arcane Anomaly. Whenever you cast a spell, give this minion +1 health. I could see that getting played in a mage deck. You could get that pretty powerful for a little while. Let's keep it alive. Next thing we have is a 1-mana, 0-attack, 2-health, Death Rattle, draw a card. It's called the Runic Egg. Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to play this because it doesn't have taunt. So nobody's ever going to attack it. It's actually beneficial when playing Hearthstone to leave a card like this on your opponent's field, because it just takes up a slot of another character, since you can only have 7 minions on the field. Next card we have is a 2-mana, 1-attack, 3-health, Nether Sprite Historian. Battlecry: if you're holding a dragon, discover a dragon. Well, this is a good card if you're trying to make a dragon deck. At the very least, now you have a card that isn't actually a dragon itself, but you could play it on the 2nd turn and discover a dragon, assuming you had another dragon in your hand, which is still a big ask. So they're slowly adding dragon cards to the deck, but I still don't feel like you can get 30 dragon related cards in the deck. Next card we have is a 2-mana, 3-attack, 2-health. This is the Pompous Thespian. He has taunt. He seems a little overpowered at 3-attack and taunt. I like him. I think he'll get a lot of play. We have now a 3-mana, 1-attack, 1-health legendary creature called Moros. He has stealth, and at the end of your turn summon a 1/1 steward. Yeah, he's pretty powerful. A lot of the early legendary cards too are nice to be added to the collection, because there are ways to get, like, replace a 3-mana card with a 3-mana legendary in your deck using the Golden Monkey and some other tricks you can do. So 1 extra 3-mana legendary helps the collection of cards. And this one's pretty powerful, because stealth is a very difficult thing to defeat. As long as this guy decides not to attack, which would be beneficial, he can just sit there, and at the end of every turn you get a 1/1 steward, and that's one more creature you would have to deal with. So I could see people playing this, but you probably could find something that does a little bit better for 3 mana. It really depends on what cards you have. That's half the problem with Hearthstone, is you may have a perfect strategy and just not have the cards to play it. You may see the cards you want and not have enough dust to make it. Next card we have is a 3-mana, 1-attack, 3 health creature, beast, actually, the Pantry Spider. Battlecry summon a 1/3 spider. I can see why this costs 3 mana, because if it was like 2 mana, it would be way too powerful. It almost should be 4 mana, but I think that's a little too much. So I think they've pretty well figured this out. Seems like a good card. It's a good beast card for beast decks. So that sounds good. Next card we have is a 3 mana, 4 attack, 3 health creature, the Violet Illusionist. During your turn, your hero is immune. Now, this is an interesting card, and I haven't really heard anybody talk about it. This is actually a super overpowered card because for the first time ever, you can make any character class immune, as far as I recall. I don't think there's any other neutral cards that can do that. There are some mage cards that can make mages immune. There are some warlock cards that can make warlocks immune. But I don't believe there's any other cards for a lot of the other classes. So you definitely would want to play this, but you would want to play it in the right time. So playing it on the 3rd turn is probably the worst time to play it. You should probably play it close to the end of the game, and that way, if you have like 1 health, you play this guy, this girl, and then you can survive that 1 extra turn and potentially turn it around. So that seems like probably the most overpowered card we've seen here. It's just, it doesn't look like that until you think it through. Next card we have is a 3 mana, 3 attack, 3 health creature called the Zubot. As a battle cry, give a random friendly beast, dragon, and murloc +1/+1. Okay, so this is a mech card, which is weird because most of the mech cards are from Goblins vs. Gnomes, and Goblins vs. Gnomes is banned in standard play. That pretty much tells you that that you shouldn't play this in standard play. On top of that, I don't think you can play this for any deck. There is no strategy in my mind. I mean, there's nowhere close to a strategy in my mind where you would have a beast, a dragon, and a murloc. Even if you had just started playing Hearthstone with the default cards, it doesn't make any sense that you would have a beast, a dragon, and a murloc in your deck or on the field, because this would have to be a beast, a dragon, and a murloc all on the field at the same time to give them all +1/+1, which really isn't that much. And yeah, so I would play this card because if I needed a 3 mana mech card with 3 attack, 3 health, but I would just ignore this. This is never going to be useful at all. Let's move forward. Next card we have is a 4 mana, 3 attack, 2 health creature called the Archnosmith. Battlecry, summon a 0/5 minion with taunt. Alright, it's a little weak for 4 mana, but then it makes up with a 0/5 with taunt, which I believe is the highest taunt I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen a 0/5 on any other card. So it's actually a very good card. Another really overpowered card. That seems to be the theme of the day. Next we have is a 4 mana, 3 attack, 4 health creature, legendary creature called Barnes. Battlecry, summon a 1/1 copy of a random minion in your deck. This is one of these random cards. It could be very useful. For instance, if you were to summon like a 1/1 copy of the Golden Monkey or of Reno Jackson, anything with a huge like battle cry effect or something like that, it might be useful, but because they're summoned magically any battle cry effect would probably not trigger, so you would need to have a deck full of death rattle creatures. And then a 1/1 copy of something with death rattle would trigger when that 1/1 copy died. So you could do like Stalag and Fugan to summon Thaddeus. A little bit easier. You'd really have to think out a strategy here. It seems like there's probably a path to an amazing strategy, but in truth, I probably wouldn't play this character. You could probably do better for 4 mana. And getting a more often than not, you're just gonna get a 1/1 copy of some random minion from your deck that you don't even care that much about, or you were playing because it was like a 3/4 or higher, and then when you get a 1/1 version of it, it's like nope. So you'd have to have a very heavy death rattle deck, I think, to play that. That's about the only thing that would make sense. Maybe spell damage +1 if you were playing mage. You could have a 1/1 copy of that. Next card we have is a 5 mana, 3 attack, 6 health creature called the Avian Watcher. Battle cry if you control a secret, gain +1 and taunt. A couple of different character classes that would work with. It would make it then a 4/7 for 5 mana, which is pretty powerful. Even for 5 mana, 3/6 is only a little bit below the curve. I would say it should be like a 5/5 if it had no effect. But yeah, if you're going to play a secret deck, I bet this card will see play. If you're playing like the Hunter and have a bunch of secrets, why not play this card instead of some other 5 mana card? Next one we have is a 5 mana, 4 attack, 4 health creature called the Menagerie Magician. Battle cry, give a random friendly beast, dragon, and murloc +2/+2. Again, the random friendly beast, dragon, and murloc +2/+2 instead of +1/+1 the last time. Again, you're never going to play this card. This makes no sense. These cards were obviously made for a very specialized battle in the adventure mode, and that will be the only time you ever use it, as is the case with all the previous adventures. There was a lot of specialized battle things. There was a lot of specialized cards in the adventure mode. There will be specialized cards in this mode too that you won't get to actually play, so they're not listed here. And sadly, those are the really, really crazy ones, and that I kind of wish, if they were going to go that wild with it, they throw those things into the game and just let havoc reign. Next card we have is a 5 mana, 5 attack, 6 health demon legendary card, and that's Prince Malcheser. When the game starts, add 5 extra legendary minions to your deck. What? This is insane. I think this ability would just trigger automatically. This is an insane card. Forget about me saying all the other ones were overpowered and all the other ones are crazy. We have legitimately found just raving lunacy in the form of a Hearthstone card. As I read this, when the game starts, if this is in your deck of 30 cards, you're going to get 5 extra legendary minions. And I assume those are random legendary minions, but it doesn't even matter. Then you have 35 cards. That means if you could just hold out for 30 turns, your opponent would start running out of cards and you would still have 5 extra cards. Even if you didn't play any of the legendary cards. It gives you such an amazing advantage. For 5 mana you play this and you get an average card of 5/6. That's ridiculous. And on top of this, it's a demon. So I believe this is also the first demon you could play as any character class. And that's insane in itself, because only the Warlock is supposed to have demons. And if they're going to break that, then they should just break character class specific cards altogether and allow any class to play mage cards, and any class to play priest cards, and any class to play warlock cards. You might as well do it that way. If you're gonna open that dam, you might as well let the floodwaters flow in. This card is insane. Absolutely gonna get played. If you can get this, get it, and well, you are gonna get it. If you get One Night in Karazhan, you're gonna get this card. I imagine this is gonna get played in every single person's deck that knows how to make a deck. If this works the way I think it works, I'm gonna immediately change all my decks for standard and wild to have this in my deck. It just makes sense. It is more powerful by far than any other card I can think of. Next card we have is 6 mana, 3 attack, 6 health, the Bookworm. It's a dragon, so they are adding some dragons, so maybe after I've seen this entire list, might be around 25 cards that are dragons that you could get in there, or dragon related. If you're holding a dragon, destroy an enemy minion with 3 or less attack. Not the greatest card, actually, though. 6 mana to summon it for a 3 attack is really, really low. 6 health doesn't make up for that, but I really don't think it should be like a 3 attack and 9 health. That doesn't really help anything there. This probably should be like a 4, maybe a 5. I would say 4 mana cost card. Its battle cry is not going to work that often unless you have a dragon deck. Moving on, we have a 6 mana, 3 attack, 3 health. Again, very weak creature, the Moat Lurker. Battle cry, destroy a minion, death rattle, resummon it. So, this is really weird. So, effectively, for 3 extra mana, you can destroy a minion, which is about average. And then, if this character dies, that minion is resummoned. The minion that was destroyed. It doesn't seem like that's a very good card. It seems like it would be really, really easy on the 6th turn for your opponent to kill this creature and then get his creature back. It's a very stall tactic way of playing that I don't think is going to get you anywhere. Man, I cannot get over this card. Just how insane that card is. It's just so far away from every other card we've seen. And all the other cards have been pretty overpowered. Sadly, something that overpowered should be given the title of the worst card ever in Hearthstone. Is overpowered cards, because that's going to drastically affect the gameplay a lot more. Forget Purify. People are just not going to play Purify. People are going to play that card. People are going to play Prince Malchesner. It's such in line for being banned immediately. I wouldn't be surprised if it is banned or changed really, really fast. Anyways, let's move forward. I'm so tied up on it. Next we have is a 7 mana, 4 attack, 6 health creature called the Curator. It has Taunt, Battle Cry, draw a beast, dragon, and Murloc from your deck. And it's a mech. So, I suppose it starts to make a little bit of sense if you could play on your 7th turn the Curator. Then draw a beast, dragon, and Murloc. Then play those other 2 cards that gave them +1/+1, and then the other card that gave it +2/+2. Then you would have on your 8th turn, maybe, no, it would be on their 9th or 10th turn, you would have a beast, a dragon, and a Murloc with +3/+3 to their attacks, which would be a massive amount of damage, and it just doesn't seem like you wouldn't have won by then if you could do all that. The combination is there, but sadly, with just playing the game correctly and doing damage to your enemy, you almost certainly should have won before that strategy would ever work. A lot of these late game strategies that in theory would work in Hearthstone don't actually ever get played because simply your opponent either beats you before you can play them, or you beat your opponent before you can play it. You take the early victory on the 5th, 6th, 7th turn. You don't make it to the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th turn of the game, when you finally have 7 cards on the field that are powered up and ready to attack. Next card we have is an 8 mana, 7 attack, 7 health creature called Midva the Guardian. Battlecry: equip Atesh, Great Staff of the Guardian. So we've seen some other cards like this, and we can't really determine how good they are. It looks like it's a fine thing for 8 mana to give you a 7/7, and so I'd probably say play it. It's a legendary card. You're usually good playing legendary cards anyways. But if Atesh, the Great Staff of the Guardian, is like a 1/8, 1 attack, 8 durability weapon, that'd be kind of cool but weak. Or if it was a 1 attack, 1 durability weapon, that would be super weak. Or if it's a 9 attack, 9 durability weapon, that would be insanely overpowered. You just don't know. Until you can play this card once, you just don't know what that weapon is. If it has any special abilities, like it can attack as many times as you want, or it has Wind Fury, or it gives your hero immunity so he can't die. You just don't know until we see that weapon. And they seriously need to fix this in their game. When you have something like this that summons a companion card like this, which attaches the Great Staff of the Guardian, they need to have that card right here next to it, or right over here next to it, or a link, click here to see that, or something. Something along that way so you can see it, because you're just not giving us enough information here. So, final card we have is a 12 mana, 8 attack, 8 health creature called Arcane Giant. Cost 1 less for each spell you've cast in the game. So anything above 10 mana, it has to reduce its cost by some factor to actually be able to play it, because you're never going to have 12 mana. Even if you played a coin and you had 10 mana, what it sometimes, depending on the card, will do is give you a card called excessive mana where you can draw a card. So you can't get up to 12. It's just not possible. I could see this card played in a mage deck. Seems like any deck where you're going to play a significant number of spells, which should probably just be the mage deck, again, this could come into play. And this card again feels like it should be like a mage character card, so only mages can play it, but they're giving it to everybody, which is not a problem for me or anything. So there we are. We have 12 pages, each page after 9. So there's 8 on this page, 16, 17, 18, and then there's 3 for each class. That's 9, 18, 27. So 18 plus 27 gives you 45 exactly cards. That's what they promised. That's what we've seen. Now, I just want to quickly go into a rant. The one rant I am willing to do, because of the Solo Adventures issue and the fact that you don't get that many cards from it, you're going to get these heroic challenges that will be super difficult, and then you'll get a small number of normal battles that I believe it's 12 this time, and then you'll get class challenges for each character, so 9 there. You're talking about 21 battles that you'll probably end up doing, and then 12 extra battles in heroic that you probably won't ever do. It's not really ever worth your time to do heroic. All it does is, if you struggle through those very difficult battles, you'll get a card back. But remember, all this gets banned in a year, maybe 2, I forget what the timeline is. So Nexramus cards can't be bought. Furthermore, you can't even buy Nexramus at all. It's not available for purchase anymore. And Blackrock Mountain is the next one to go. So all that being said, I kind of wish, personally, they would just stop making solo adventure games. It just doesn't work well with the card game, and things get banned, so it's come and go, and it's just not as good of an expansion. By comparison, if we go into crafting mode here, and we look at the Old Gods expansion, which is just an expansion of cards, you can see there's a lot more cards for the Druid that they added, a lot more cards for the Hunter, a lot more for the Mage, a lot more for all of them, because that's all they focused on. They just made new cards, and it feels like they thought the cards through probably a little bit better in the Old Gods than these super overpowered cards in the in One Night in Karazhan. So I wish they would just every couple of months say, we've got another 135 cards, which I believe is how many were added to the Old Gods expansion, instead of saying we've got another 45 and these weird kind of puzzly matches that you're going to play once. And, oh, by the way, you have to pay money for that solo adventure. And, oh, by the way, we're going to ban that solo adventure. And so then the cards are going to have even less use. Now, they are going to ban the Old Gods eventually, too. So the banning is its own separate issue. And that's weird. But the difference between them banning the Old Gods and them banning Nexramus is I don't believe you can get Nexramus cards at all. I don't think you can just craft them. Maybe you can disenchant them, but can you enchant them? If you didn't buy Nexramus, then you would have to like craft them. Yeah. Well, so that's my rant. I just wish they would make more cards and not waste their time on solo adventures. I think it's a waste. But that being said, I kind of liked these cards. I'm a lot happier after looking through all of them. So that's it. The expansion comes out on August 11th, so in a couple days. And I will play all of that. Excuse me, I've been talking too long. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.